2, 3, 4. Hi folks, if you're listening, thanks for joining me. My computer's organised for today's lecture. Today's lecture. Today's a catch-up lecture for Monday, where I wasn't available because I was travelling, and also it was public holiday. So two issues, meaning that I couldn't get a lecture on Monday. What a thing, eh? Adjust my level here a little bit, sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That should be just about what I want. I want to be over the top loud. I want to be nice and loud, but not peaking. So if anyone wants to give me some feedback on whether this is nice and loud or peaking, please do so. Just logging into Project on my other computer so that I have my stuff ready. There's my example sketch. A little demo. I might get to it today. I'm ready. Good morning, folks. Thanks for joining me. If you are joining me here this morning, let's have a look on my Restream tab. See how many people are joining. I've got a few people watching on YouTube. Someone's watching on Twitch. Someone might be watching on Teams. I'm just going to start recording from now. And good day, folks who are listening on the recording. Sorry, I didn't press record before. I only spoke for 2 seconds. This is the catch-up lecture for week 8. Oh no, week 9. It is week 9 now. Week 9, which was normally be on Monday. On Mondays, but Monday was a public holiday and I was traveling, so double problem on Monday. But the good news is that I'm here now to talk about how storyboards and interaction design work, which is our topic for today. Let's close some windows. Storyboards and interaction design, a few things, and this is really your the start of, well, last week was the start, and this is the continuation of your package of support for doing the major project. How to do the major project. So this is the rest of this course. The rest of this course is entirely focused on the major project, and that means that, I'll just make it full screen, may as well full screen it. That means that you've done 50% of the assessment for this class, except for a few little extra percentage points on the in-lab assessments, and you now are 100% focused on thinking about your major project, doing your major project, and handing in your major project by the major project deadline. This is a much bigger assessment item than the others. It's worth 50% of your marks in this course. So I expect you to think about it more deeply, make it bigger, put more effort and polish in than the regular assignments. Sometimes there are folks in this class who do these regular 15% assignments and they get so into them that they make them like almost the level of the major project. But the difference with the major project is that you have more scope for what you want to do. You have the responsibility and the challenge of defining your own idea for an interactive artwork, whereas the assignments tended to give you a very clear spec about what to do. They were open-ended, but they still gave you a lot of instructions. But in the major project, you don't have that. You have to invent a lot more of the project aspects yourself. So this is up on the course website now. I'm just going to have a look at the tab for the major projects just to show you what's going on. I've finalized this page now. You've had your theme for a little while and started to think about your sketch, but I've now finalized the page and you've got the assignment template now available for you. So, major projects. This is an interactive P5 artwork for an interactive media art exhibition. Here's the scenario. People come into this exhibition, they walk around, they observe various works on the wall, on big screens maybe, including yours, at their leisure. If they see something that they're interested in, they might interact with it, but they might not. You can't control that. So you're not giving them additional guidance or instruction on what to do necessarily, unless they choose to go and interact with your work and learn about it. So your goal is to provide an interesting and coherent experience which engages viewers in interaction and then holds their attention for roughly 3 minutes. And the exact nature of that experience is up to you. We have this theme this year. Every year we have a different theme. This year's theme is After Hours. And your work has to reflect on this theme or incorporate it in some meaningful way. And again, up to you to decide how the theme should be incorporated into your work. We expect everyone to have a unique take on the theme, a unique interactive artwork. This is not a situation where there's one answer. It's more like a common network of ideas floating around in this class, and maybe some people do things which are a little bit similar, but they're definitely going to be independent artworks. Assignment template is available on GitLab. You can go and click that yourself to get the template. There's a few requirements which are a little bit different here. It's mainly just an evolution of the requirements from the previous assignment, so you should be comfortable with this, but it must relate to the theme in a meaningful way. Most important first requirement. Must be interactive, must be engaging and coherent, must use interaction to enhance experience. These are the same requirements as the third assignment. We're now at that stage of fully embracing interaction and connecting it to the viewer's experience. It should be using the full screen of the browser, and you need to use fractions of width and height to locate objects for drawing and interaction. You need to have a thumbnail image. You need to have a P5 sketch, which puts code in the usual sketch.js file. You have an artist statement, which is now going to be 300 words. You need a statement of originality with at least 2 references, just like the previous assignments. And if you're a COMP1720 student, you have to write an additional statement in a file called the recent developments file. Similarly to assignment 3, for image files, your choices are create them yourself. That's what we prefer. You may, if you want to find images online, you may use an image from unsplash.com. You must not use sound files unless you've created them yourself or if they come from freesound.org. You must not make a game. We've got a page with more information about that, and your tutors will certainly tell you if you're doing something which looks a lot like a game. You must include references for any image or sound file that you create, even if you created it yourself. So we need to have a list in your statement of originality of all of the files, asset files, image or sound files included in your work. And if you didn't create them, I need a reference there. Also, for any other kind of file, like a font file or something, it needs to be in your statement of originality. You get an extra file this time, an instructions.md file. So you get to write in that file if there's any special instructions that you want us to know about before seeing your sketch, put it in that file. But that's entirely optional. So some folks ask during the year, well, I really need tutors to listen to my artwork with good speakers. How can I ask them to do that? Well, it's not something for your artist statement. It's something for your instructions.md file. Now, submission must include a short, max 300 words artist statement. You've got 2 questions to answer in your artist statement. How would you like viewers to perceive the major project theme in your work? So I need you to explain how you incorporated your theme and what you expect viewers to take away from that. How you expect a viewer to see the theme within your work. So it's really, I want you to focus on the viewer here, not exactly on you as the creator. I want you to be thinking about how people see your work. You also need to, similarly to assignment 3, answer this question: how does interaction enhance the viewer's experience? Again, thinking of interaction not from your perspective as the designer, but from the viewer's perspective. I'll just skip to the instructions file. This is optional and for everybody. If you have anything you want to tell us about how to use your artwork, just so we don't miss anything, or so we do it right, or how to set it up properly, put it in this file. So some examples might be: this needs a webcam, use the arrow keys to do something, press R to do something, use the microphone to do something, make sure your speakers are good, I don't know. So any special instructions so that we don't miss any aspect of your artwork, put it in the instructions.md file. This is super optional. Of course, the specification for your major project is that people should be able to figure out how to use it, but there might be some things like how to set it up, make sure there's a keyboard available or something that are a good idea for us to know, just so we don't miss anything. Now, if you're in 6720, there's two courses I'm talking to right now, COMP1720 and COMP6720, and they actually have slightly different learning outcomes. And the COMP6720 has the learning outcome that your work has to reflect on recent developments in art and interaction computing. So you have an additional file called COMP6720 recent developments.md, and the idea for that file is that you need to write in there how your artwork reflects recent developments in art and interaction computing. So you need to include some references, you need to discuss that point. The maximum file length is 200 words, so it's not a long, complicated document to write. Straight ahead, what recent developments in art and interaction computing are you reflecting on? I have a whole lecture next week about recent developments, so if you're confused about that or want to know more, come to that lecture and make sure you know about it. Apart from those different requirements, everything is basically the same kind of submission as you've made 3 times before. So you're now all experts in submitting assignments in COMP1720/6720. You shouldn't have any issues getting this assignment in and having this fully signed, sealed, and delivered by the due date. The due date being 2100 AEDT on 31st of October 2022, which I believe is the Monday after, let's check that, Monday after week 12. of October, yes, Monday after week 12. Folks, it's definitely a time in week 12 where you have other assessments going on for other subjects. So please make sure you're organized. You take advantage of the labs that we set up for the next 3 weeks. Week 10 lab, starting your major project. Week 9 lab you're doing this week, major project storyboard. Week 11, iterating, revising, and pruning. Week 12, working on your major project. Use those labs to make sure that you're organized and get your major project done by the deadline, please. If there's some unavoidable and unpredictable circumstance that is causing you to not be able to meet that deadline, please ask for an extension. Short extensions are easy to get, but long extensions in the exam period may not be easy to get. So make sure that you are well organized and do the majority of your work before that deadline, or before the few days before the deadline, so that you have a really good major project. We will be talking about major projects, giving you more details about every aspect every week from now on, so I'm going to move on in the lecture. So, inspiration and iteration. We're going to talk about a few things here. In this course, we have looked at software engineering for artists, artistic processes for software engineers, and the goal has been to create compelling and sophisticated interactive artworks in this course. And we want to have a high assurance of success. So what can we do to make ourselves more successful at creating art? And that's a hard thing. It's not magical though. Art is not magical. Sometimes it feels magical, but it's not magical. It is possible to do things to make sure that your art has a higher assurance of success than you might normally expect. And one of those things is to think about where the inspiration for art comes from. How do you get inspiration for art? How does that help us? So the process of inspiration might be, you know, you might imagine it's something like this. You're some kind of perfect artist, like this guy with his leather jacket and his kind of Renaissance clothing. You're in a very inspiring environment full of masks and skulls, and you've got this canvas that you're ready to create your artwork, and you just sort of just gaze into the middle distance and think, what is my next big idea going to be? And you think, I've got it. I know I'm going to make an interactive artwork about, you know, giraffes in space, creating new universes that are also within other universes, and it'll be a cyclical universe sequence with space giraffes interacting through the keyboard and mouse. That's one way of getting inspiration, just sort of dreaming at it from nowhere. But in fact, it's not very realistic. Most people, most artists, use their life to develop ideas. And we've discussed this many times before, but I'll just give you another example showing this work by René Magritte. This work about mermaids or mer people, the mer people in nature. And it's a painting, there's a ship in the background, there's the sea, sky, there's some kind of weird like sea inside this ship, so it's a bit confusing about where the sea is, where the land is, and there's two stone mer people here in the foreground of the piece with fish heads and human legs. So usually it's the other way around, right? A mer person has a human top and a fish bottom, but these are the other way around. Fish people. Crazy idea, but where did this idea come from? As it turns out, this is a very famous work. As it turns out, this idea didn't come from nowhere. If you look at works of René Magritte, you will find many works related to fish, ocean, the sky, putting different parts of the ocean in different parts of the sky, and mer people, so both fish by themselves and half fish, half humans. So inspiration doesn't come from nowhere often. It comes from taking a few good ideas that you think are your personal favorites and then building on them through trial and error. And this is a really valuable process when you're stuck with ideas, to be able to do iteration and take some favorite ideas that are important to you and building on them over time. Here's a previous sketch of a similar idea. Another René Magritte work from 5 years previously. It's just a small sketch with a ship, with the ocean, with this same fish person, but it's just one fish person this time. So obviously obsessed with this idea and developing it over time to create different artworks. A few quotes and ideas about inspiration and iteration. Chuck Close is a very famous artwork. There's an amazing painting by Chuck Close at the National Gallery of Australia here in Canberra. Ultra realism and was part of Chuck Close's idea. So it looks like a photograph, but it's actually a painting, and it's huge, amazing piece. Inspiration is for amateurs. The rest of us just show up and get to work. If you wait around for the clouds to part and a bolt of lightning to strike you in the brain, you're not going to make an awful lot of work. All the best ideas come out of the process. They come out of the work itself, the work of creating art every day or every week in your labs, doing your assignments. You've all done these 3 assignments as a process of iteration. Now you've got 3 weeks to iterate on ideas for your major project and try little ideas and get better at it. So if you want something to be good, be prepared to get up and get to work every day, not in the last 2 days before that assignment's due. The rules. This is the Immaculate Heart College Art Department rules by Sister Corita Kent, a very famous art educator and contemporary artist. There's a lot of rules here, but I want to iterate Rule 6 and Rule 7. Nothing is a mistake. There is no win. There is no fail. There is only make. Rule 7, the only rule is work. If you work, it will lead to something. It's the people who do all the work all the time who eventually catch on to things. All the work, if you do work, it will lead to something. So if you're confused and concerned about doing a great major project, show up to work, have ideas, try things out, have bad ideas, but keep doing them. And you'll be a person who is doing all the work all the time, and you'll be the person who catches on to something. Have a look again at those rules another time. Now a quote from John Cage. There's actually one of these rules is related to John Cage. We're breaking all of the rules. Even our own rules, and how do we do that? By leaving plenty of room for X quantities, John Cage. So John Cage was involved in Corita Kent's educational work, talking to students and contributing to these rules. In John Cage's famous kind of lectures on silence, 1961, or essays, this is written, in Zen they say, if something is boring after 2 minutes, try it for 4. If it's still boring, try for 8, 16, 32, and so on. Eventually one decides or discovers that it's not boring at all, but very interesting. So the point of this, to me, is something I think about when I'm creating new music or creating new artworks, is to try to get inside the idea of something being boring or bad and really examine it to find out what is the nature of that thing. So if you've created an artwork that you're not satisfied with, or had an idea that you're not satisfied with, maybe you have to look at it a bit closer and you'll find out what it is about it which is interesting. And you can use that knowledge to make it better for other people as well. If something's boring after 2 minutes, try it for 4. So don't throw your ideas away too quickly. Keep looking at them. Look closer. Look for 4 minutes. Look for 8 minutes. 16, 32, and so on. Process. What's the right way to make a piece of art? What's the right way? Let's look at some examples from other fields at processes for creating work. Graphic design. Here's a logo type. What's the process for creating a logo in graphic design? You sketch. You do lots of sketches. So this logo comes from, or it would have been part of a procedure of creating many, many similar logos and working out what works and what doesn't work and what the ideas that the client wants are and what's the nature of the thing that's being advertised. So I think this was an idea, this sketchbook or sketch entry is from some designers trying to work out the logo for a hotel called Loft, or the Loft, and just finding lots of different ideas about loftiness or birds or something, and what does that mean? A bird in the sky, and there's the hotel, and there's mountains in the background. Looking through a round window at the moon, and there's some clouds and birds out there. This kind of totem pole loft thing. And lots of concepts, just trying to keep getting inside ideas. Look for 2 minutes, look for 4 minutes, try to find what's interesting and what will work. Web design, very, very creative field related to computer science. In web design, people use wireframes to sketch out ideas. So you make a quick, simple version of a website, try it different ways, and try to zoom out and think about what will really work. Best for the designer, best for the client, best for the customer and the viewer. So it's a sketch process of wireframes. Filmmaking. How do people do this in filmmaking? They don't, when you make a film, you don't just take the camera and the actors and just get together and see what happens. Unless you do, it's a special kind of film. But in most films, people plan it really carefully. It has to be planned really carefully, otherwise it doesn't work. The storyboard. You work out where each actor is going to be in each scene, what the shots are going to be. Everything is planned out. And so it's sketched so that you can change it easily before you actually start shooting. Shooting a film is super expensive. Making a storyboard is not expensive. You can just sketch things out quickly. What about making animations? I don't know if you've probably seen a video of like the sketched version of an animation. Obviously making an animated film is also really expensive to do the animation, even if it's 3D computer generated animation, rig the characters, render it, design the scenes. So before they do that, they make a quick sketched version called an animatic, which is kind of low frame rate. It looks like a flip book, flipping through the characters moving around the scene, doing what they're expected to do, to check what works, to sketch. How does this relate to our work, and what do these processes have in common? They're all sketching processes. So making quick, short versions of your idea at a time when it's low pressure, low risk. And processing and P5 are actually programming languages designed to enable programmers to sketch. So the point of these systems is to enable people to sketch. the synthesis of graphic design with computer science, combining the visual principles of design with ways of thinking about systems from CS. We wanted to share a way of working with code where things are figured out during the process of writing the software. We called this sketching with code. This is actually a really cool idea, and things like P5 and processing have made this idea popular in other computer science applications. For example, Jupyter notebooks for Python allow you to sketch in Python with your data analysis or something. But processing in P5 lets you sketch in graphical code for creating artworks, and it's a really important part of these tools. So the process for code art in processing is to open up coding to the quick sketch process people use in art and design. So we're not just taking days to create one program, we're going to rapidly try things and different versions, and iterate quickly. Here's some examples of these are things for you to look at later, but examples of digital artists in P5. Natalia Stuik, Zach Lieberman, really famous interactive artists working in processing in P5. Manolo Gamboa Naun, Helena Sarin. Have a look at these examples these are recent developments basically in how to make code art. Espen Kluger. Yeah, so important examples for you to look at, to see what people are doing in P5 and hopefully inspire your thought processes for these artworks. So now, next topic, user experience design. You've done this week storyboards, and this isn't because your major project is supposed to be a story. But the point of the storyboard is to design the experience of viewers looking at your artwork, imagining what they're going to do, in what order, and what will happen in the artwork. So in computing, we call this user experience design. Important concept, but I want to look at it from a different perspective, or an experience process from a different perspective in a minute. We're going to think about the story of viewers experiencing your artwork, what the viewer sees and does, and how that will lead to a rewarding experience and a memorable experience for a viewer. One way of thinking about this is an art theory concept called a hook. So what is a hook? How can an artwork hook a viewer and not a fish? We talked about fish before, now we're going to talk about viewers. How can we map out an experience as a trajectory through a story? And does this make art evil? These are the topics for the next few minutes. So, how we get hooked. This is a framework called the Hook Canvas by an author called Nir Eyal from a book called Hooked, basically about designing products, advertisements, and experiences, and how these relate to the experience of a human. So there's 4 stages: trigger, action, reward, and investment. And it's a loop. So when you're hooking someone with an ad or an experience or an idea or a product, you want them to keep coming back. You don't want to just give them a one-shot experience. They do something, a thing happens, they get something out of it, and then they walk away. You want them to be invested in what you've produced. Investment means that they keep coming back. Investment means that you've got them, you can sell them something. So this is why it's a bit evil here, because we want users to continually work with our experience and want to do it more. We want them to get obsessed with it. So the trigger, the first stage, we're addressing the viewer directly. I've got some examples from advertising in this talk. So you'll see a few ads going on, famous ads from the past sometimes. This one's a very famous ad from the past called "I Want You" for the US Army. It was a World War I ad for recruiting soldiers in the United States. And this guy's sort of representation of the United States. I think that guy is often called Uncle Sam, like kind of a generic representation in popular culture of the nature of the US. And he's pointing to the viewer, addressing the viewer directly. I want you, making you take notice. This still happens today. Here's a recent ad for a personalized skincare consultation awaits you. And there's a circle around the person, imagining that is the you that they're talking for. Olay for you. Now you can take the guesswork out of skincare. Wouldn't we all like to take the guesswork out of skincare? I guess it's not that recent an ad, because look at how thick that laptop is, super thick. But this is basically the same idea, isn't it? You. Look at my ad. Trigger. Call out to someone. Get them to pay attention. We do this in software as well with notifications. So notifications are directly address the viewer. And we've got this little evil concept here, the little red bubble with a number. When you're just looking over your phone, what makes you click one app rather than a different app? Apps are actually competing for your attention, right? They want you to work with them. The little red bubble with the 2, red is a kind of a color that people perceive as being very important. And the little number gives you kind of anxiety, so it's triggering to see that. It's a trigger for you to click on this. So how do you hail the viewer? How do you trigger the viewer to interact with your artwork? And in your major project, you can't assume that a viewer wants to interact. Your job in this artwork is to grab their attention, hopefully without being too annoying, but a little bit annoying. You have to make people want to work with your artwork. What do you do to invite them? Hopefully it's not a red bubble. Hopefully it's not as obvious as just saying, you interact with my artwork, but you can find clever ways to do this. Let's talk about action. This is the simplest behavior in anticipation of a reward, or what behaviors the user is going to do. So the user's been triggered to pay attention to your work. Now what can they do? What action do you want the viewer to perform? How are they supposed to know what to do? And what is it going to be? So this relates to affordances. Affordances don't work unless the viewer wants to interact. So we need to have that trigger phase, but now they want to interact, they're about to do something. What is it they're supposed to do? Is there a keyboard there for them to use? They're using the mouse. They're waving their hands in front of a camera. A lot of different options. So this is all about action possibilities. We've talked about that before, so we move on to reward. This was something which was started to become really important in assignments 2 and 3. Not just that there would be interaction, but the interaction would be rewarding and provide a reason for the user to do it again and again. So is the reward fulfilling but leaves the user wanting more? You don't want to give away all of the secrets of your artwork in just a few seconds, because then there's nothing else to discover. Maybe you want to sort of let users interact a bit more and lead them out with a few smaller rewards so that they come back and keep interacting. So what's the reward for your viewer? And in advertising promises to deliver on the needs of consumers, and advertising people are really thinking about what people perceive as needs. And according to motivation psychologists, we are all motivated by the need for one or more of these 4 things: power, achievement, affiliation, and intimacy. So there's sources below, but these are 4 kind of high-level needs for humans. The needs that motivate us. Of course, we all need food and water and shelter. Those are low-level needs. But the needs that really motivate us to do things are these 4 higher-level needs. Let's look at some advertisements that relate to this. The need for power. This ad is all about that, showing a really powerful person doing a hard thing, they're sprinting, moving really well, like the hair, it's kind of got speed lines behind her hair flapping out in the wind of the air rushing past as she moves so fast. And it's Katrina Jonsson Thompson, who's a heptathlete, I guess goes in heptathons. So obviously a really powerful person. I guess if you look closely, there is an advertisement here. She's wearing Nike clothes, and this is specifically advertising a knit tank top. So it's advertising a shirt. Is this shirt going to make you a powerful athlete? Probably not. But the advertisement is suggesting that it might be somehow related to power. And then if you have this shirt, maybe you will be powerful and amazing like this person. Need for achievement. If you can work out what this ad is advertising, you're better than me. It's definitely an ad for Patagonia. And I know from existing in the world that Patagonia sells outdoors clothes and bags and pants and shoes and stuff. But they're not I guess maybe they're wearing Patagonia like jackets here. They make puffy jackets, so that could be a Patagonia puffy jacket. Could be Patagonia pants and Patagonia shirt. But they're not really a climbing company, and these people are definitely climbers. But the point of this advertisement is to associate Patagonia with amazing achievements in outdoor adventure. So it's a quote from some cool climber. I felt the intensity of the entire project peaking inside me, the power of the community, their support and abandoning something. So it's all about making amazing achievements, and something to do with that is associated with Patagonia. So if you go to the Patagonia store, you too could be having amazing achievements in your life, like these amazing people climbing up a sheer wall of verticality. The need for affiliation. So this one's about an adult beverage called Midori. And there's all these people here wearing white, and they've got normal drinks. And then this person here, who happens to be Kim Kardashian, has a green drink. And everyone's like, oh wow, look at Kim Kardashian, she's got a cool green drink. And maybe if they had green drinks too, they could be associated with this cool person. So this is the idea that if you have this specific product, maybe you're affiliating with yourself with the cool lifestyle, the coolness of Kim Kardashian. If you aspire to be a Kim Kardashian-like person, maybe having this cool green drink would be one way to do it. Affiliation. The need for intimacy. So this is a very, probably the most evil ad, I think, in this whole list. Of these two people who are obviously on a date and having a Coca-Cola, sharing a Coca-Cola together on like the classic Coca-Cola day, which is like sun as far as the eye can see, huge blue sky, having a great time. There might be a beach in the background. And is she looking at her boyfriend? No. She's looking at the viewer. And so maybe the viewer is thinking, well, maybe she could come and talk to me instead. I could buy a Coke. It's pretty evil, isn't it? Looking straight at the viewer, her boyfriend's staying there, oblivious to the fact that maybe her intimacy is available, or a discussion with her, a relationship, a conversation would be available if you too could have a Coca-Cola with zero sugar. So it's exploiting that desire that people have for relationships with others. Those are the rewards. You could think about what rewards your major project delivers. Is it exploiting some of those needs of people? What needs are being met by the reward in your project? Well, sometimes major project rewards are sort of like, I get to see a new picture. Well, that's a reward, sure, but why would that be important to me as a viewer? Maybe you can use some of these slightly evil advertising concepts to make rewards that are a little bit more deep. What's the last bit? Investment. And this is a tricky one. And it's one that is really useful for getting a major project that your viewer, that is probably me and your tutors, will want to look at for a longer period of time. What bit of work is done to increase the likelihood of returning? What bit of work is done to increase the likelihood of returning? So when I'm interacting with a work, I'm doing some work. I'm having to figure out things or place objects or move things, and I'm investing in that process. And my investment actually makes me want to keep coming back. So something like social media, it doesn't just trigger action reward and then go back to trigger. There is investment where I start to enter my information. I put photos in there, or I build up a sequence of tweets or posts, or I had my friends network and I talk to people. So I'm investing in that application. And by making that investment, that means it's easier for it to trigger me in future to come and connect with it, because it's saying, look at all the work you've done already. You don't want to throw this away. Come back, talk to these people, add more posts, keep your string of images flowing, keep talking back through Snapchat. Add another reel. So the investment actually builds the capacity for further triggers. Here's an artwork which is basically only about investment. It's a very strange artwork by Marina Abramovic, a very famous performance art artist, called The Artist is Present. And in this artwork, Marina Abramovich would just sit there in this chair with a table, and people could come and sit in the chair opposite her, and she would just look at them. That's the artwork. There's no more to it than that. But people would sit there for a long time, and I guess part of that is because when they sit down, they're investing in being part of the artwork. And you don't want to just sit down and just look around and say, okay, stand up again and leave. Once you've sat down, you've taken this, made this big investment in being part of the show. All of these cool people, including some people wearing some rather amazing outfits. This person here, this person here, and this person here has some really incredible style going on. They're at the Museum of Modern Art. They're all watching you now. So you've invested in being a part of it, and you don't want to give up that investment easily. You want to continue and continue to invest, continue putting more actions in by continuing to sit down and be a part of the experience. Even if really are you getting anything out of it? Not really. You're just sitting in a chair. You could sit in a chair at home. We have chairs at home, as well as chairs in the Museum of Modern Art. So people would queue up for ages to be in this chair and sit down and be looked at by Marina Abramovich. So like, it's art that's only about the investment in the experience. How do we do this in P5? How do we do it in P5? Think about what your affordances are, how you're triggering the viewer. Think about what the actions are that the viewer takes. Think about what the rewards are, and think about how users invest in your artwork. Are they investing by moving things around, placing objects, adding something to the artwork that then is incorporated into it, exploring things in a certain order and in a certain way to open up different experiences? There's lots of ways of investing in an artwork, in an interactive artwork. So this is quite a different framing of interaction than we discussed in week 5, and I think it's a more evil framing, isn't it? Because we're not just thinking about presenting things to the viewer and saying, oh, if you like, you can interact with my things. I've got some things here for you. If you'd like to interact with them, that would be lovely. Thank you. It's more evil because we're thinking, how can we present things for people to interact with, but then make them do it, make them want to be there, address them directly, get them sucked in, get them to interact with things, get them to invest their time and efforts, and then get them to come back. So it is a little bit evil, isn't it? We're taking advantage of the way that brains work and the way humans work to build interaction experiences. Hopefully we're doing it for positive reasons. We want people to have a great experience, but it's a little bit evil, definitely. Okay, next little topic. Art theory, iteration and evolution. Now we're going to talk again about iteration, but in a different way, because now we're iterating inside an artwork. We're encoding iteration in some way within an artwork as part of the experience. So it's not just an abstract part that you could see later, it's part of the artwork itself. And thinking about how iteration could be made interactive and part of the viewer's experience, a cool idea. So here's an example by friend of the course, Tony Curran, who had a art series of artworks called Hot Attention Machines. It was all related to hooks and attention on phones and apps, and inspired by the pixels in the phones. So here's a few images, interesting images of how pixels are actually laid out, zoomed in on a LCD screen. They're not obviously like in a regular order. They're in different ways, different shapes. We don't see it when we're zoomed out, but there's lots of different ways that pixels are laid out inside a liquid crystal display. And this was the inspiration for a project that would relate to these three colors, really super bright red, super bright blue, and super bright green, overlaid in these different ways. So Tony, to create this idea for a project, worked with a evolutionary approach for iteration. So you can do a kind of inspired by how animals evolve over time, creatures evolve using genetics. You can create a fake process of evolution with artworks. So you might have a bunch of artworks which are your population, and then you're taking the ones that you really like combining them together in some way and making a new population, just like animals reproduce over time and have selected pressure by fitness for living in an environment. So this is inspired by the genetic algorithm, broadly speaking, outlined by John Holland, who's a famous scientist responsible for with others, the initial ideas for genetic and evolutionary algorithms. If you're a computer science student, you might have seen evolutionary algorithms in courses in machine learning and optimization. It's another way of optimizing algorithms in a different way than our what's now very popular, the kind of supervised deep learning approach. The genetic algorithms let a computer-described thing be described by something like a gene, and then you evolve that gene over time using mutations and combinations. So here's the initial population. Whoops, resume presentation. I don't know what I pressed there. You've got this bunch of initial ideas of simple displays, and then you select the ones you think are cool. So each generation we select one and we make some others that are like it. Iterate on that idea, select a different one, take two in this third generation, we're going to combine them together. In our fourth generation, we've got this population, we're combining these two. And then from the fifth generation, we figure out some criteria to work out which one we really like. And then these were printed using a screen printing technique to create the eventual outputs. And then you've got the same image here, but in different colors to create this sequence of the same artwork. Pixels in 12, number 2 from 2019. So this is a cool way of kind of manually applying a genetic algorithm approach to art creation. Can we do this not just manually, but like actually in real time? You can, and there's a very cool way of doing this, which is a project called Pick Breeder. I'm just going to make one here where Pick Breeder gives us a selection of little pictures, and these ones are actually, each of these pictures is described by a mathematical function. So that allows us to combine the mathematical functions in different ways and create different images. So what we do is find a few that we like. I think I like that one with the circles, that one, and this one. And I'm going to mutate based on those three. And then I go a lot more based on that idea. Well, now I really like that one, this one, and this one. I'll mutate based on those. And we keep getting now. Now I see this cool red one came out, and this weird spiral one. So I'm going to take those three now. So it's starting to get somewhere. It's a very explorative process here. You have to keep going to try to find what comes out. And you might find that there are ones, you don't have to pick exactly 3 each time. You might start to get some different ideas. Focus on different ideas, because it's always got a little bit of randomness in every generation. There's a bit of random mutation going on. So there might be some which come out much better than others. Oh, that's cool. This one's got this kind of sound wave approach. Don't like that one. I like ones with 2 bars now. 2 bars and sound waves. I don't really know where I'm going with this, but you play over time and see what people have done. But we can go and look at some examples. There's examples of ones that people have found by exploring over time. There used to be on this page like some best of. I think they've not got the best of anymore, but people would find like butterflies and trucks and people over time developing different ideas. So that's Pick Breeder. This is sort of using evolution in real time to develop an artwork. Does this work in modern interactive art? Yeah. So I've got a few examples here of recent developments in creating interactive evolutionary artworks in real time. So this one relates to VR. I think I've got another one that's a VR example as well. Mutator VR, an interactive evolutionary artwork, and there's a link here to a paper discussing this concept. I think you should be able to find that one. Oh yeah, there's a paper about it. You can read this paper about exhibiting mutative VR procedural art evolves to virtual reality. Looks like a cool idea. So this one has created, you'd go into a virtual reality world with the headset, do some stuff to evolve a 3D artwork, and then it would be projected on screens for other people to see. And here's a little video of it. I can see what's going on in mutative VR. There's the artist there. I just want to see some examples. Someone wearing the headset. These are some of these little forms that exist here. I don't really know how this works. It seems very complicated. You don't have to do something this complicated for your major project if you don't want to. There's a lot of little behaviors going on, animals and big forms and landscapes, but really whimsical stuff. Oh, that's amazing, isn't it? Okay, mutative VR. You can go learn more about that if you want. And I've got some further reading for you. If you're interested in genetic algorithms and evolution, have a look in Dan Schiffman's book. So we don't have time to go into detail in this course, but Dan Schiffman, you may have seen some videos called Coding Train by Dan Schiffman, working in P5. He has two books basically. One is a P5 course, similar to this course, and the second course is called Nature of Code. So it's got a lot of biologically inspired or nature-inspired code with examples in P5 and processing. So there's a Dan Schiffman video here, an example of looking at genetic algorithms over time. Now, we're at the end of the lecture, so I'm going to talk about a little example, and the point of my example today is going to be a particular way of maybe making a major project. So you might decide in your major project that you'd like to have, oops, that's not a comment, I'll make this a bit bigger. You might like to have a sequence of different scenes that happen over time. So your user does something, they're triggered to interact, they go and start interacting with your work, and then something happens and everything changes in your scene. So one way of doing this is to start to set out some different functions that will be called from your draw function. This is a really classic technique. So you might have function draw scene 1 or something, draw scene 1. And then similarly, I'm going to copy and paste this. Copying and pasting is an essential programming technique. Draw scene 1, draw scene 2, and draw scene 3. So you might have a three-act play, a three-scene, three-act opera. Threes are a good number for things, and you might want that in your major project to have 3 different ideas. Now, instead of having kind of a background thing in draw, you might call this other function to do your drawing for you. So background in here could be 255, and we might have a square rect 100, 100, 25, 25. Oh, someone's chatting at me. I should see what they're talking about. There's a few people there. Any comments so far? Sorry if I've missed any messages. So there's my first little rectangle. I'll make it a red rectangle. Red RGB. I'll make that a little bit gray. I'm going to make this screen width and height. What is it? Window width and window height. So this is a boring artwork, isn't it? But it's not terrible. I might make it move a little bit. How am I going to make my square move? I think I will have millis, Assign millis. Millis is the time elapsed, or frame count would be better, wouldn't it? Frame count. I've forgotten how it goes. Does it have a capital C? Someone help me out. There it is. See what happens here. Nope, something's gone wrong. I'm doing it completely wrong. Frame count could not be called as a function. Oh, because it's it's not a function, is it? I'm missing a bracket. There we go. Okay, that's moving like that. I want this to be slower, so I'm going to divide frame count by something. That's the wrong symbol for divide. I'm not having a good day for live coding, am I? There we go. It's too slow. Move it. Make it move faster. Bit faster than that. Okay, my square is now moving. And that's exciting, isn't it? 50 plus random 2. It's going to be a wiggly square. It starts in the middle really and goes forwards and backwards, and I want it to not go all the way. Maybe 0.4. Okay, I'm spending too much time on my wiggly square because this is really not the point of the exercise. The point of the exercise is to think of 3 different artworks. My second artwork is going to be drawn after that, draw scene 2, and draw scene 2 is just going to have like background, like 0, 80, random, 100 to 150, 0. It's going to have a weird green color. That's it. That's a bit blinky. Sorry about that. I'll make that less annoying. So it's still a little bit annoying, isn't it? But it's sort of a flickery green color. I could use sign again for changing the color green. Instead of that, it will be 150 plus 50 times that. I've got too many brackets maybe. That's better. So over time it gets more green and then less green. I want to make that happen like quite fast. It's still not fast enough. There we go. A slow pulsing green background. And it's going to have a yellow square in the, or a yellow ellipse in the middle. Rect. Oh, not rect, fill. Height times 0.5, width times 0.1, height times 0.2. There's a blue, teal ellipse actually. That's weird. Okay, this is the weirdest artwork I've ever made. And what's scene 3 going to be? Scene 3 is going to be, I think, like, what should scene 3 be? Some rects that change their height or something. Black background, and I mean this is really live sketching, isn't it? I'm just trying to, in a few seconds, imagine a okay, 4 I equals 0, I less than 10, I plus plus. I make a for loop. I'm going to make 10 rectangles. That's I. So this is my first rectangle. My second rectangle is going to be width. It's going to be 10 rectangles that take 1/10 of the width at the bottom. And fill is going to be 255. This will be black and white in this artwork. Times I, whoops, P, I plus 1. And then the height of that will be something else. Oh, that's the corner position. I have to look in the P5 manual now. p5js.org. Draw a location. I really want the bottom corner of the rectangle to be the one that we. Oh well, we're doing top left corner then. X coordinate, Y coordinate 0, and then the width will be width times 0.1, and the height will be height. No idea what this is going to look like, and I've got too many, or not enough. Okay, I think I've got enough things now. I'm going to draw scene 3. Let's see what happens. That's not working. Oh, what? Where's my eye? Oops, didn't have the right symbols in there for my for loop. Classic Charles error. This is all right. Look at that. That's cool. And I go backwards. Actually, it's going to be in the middle of the screen. Height times 0.5. And I think I've got them in the. Oh, yeah, this is going to be cool. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm starting in the wrong place. I thought I would have started at 0, because I starts at 0, doesn't it? Have I done the wrong thing with rect? want to print something out and see where it is. Should be 0. Well, where's my rectangle? Ah, I broke that one. That's the reason. The minimum of I is 1, otherwise it's going to break the sign part. So this is the most complicated little part here. So I've just sketched out 3 different scenes to try to give you something. There we go, 10 rectangles moving up and down, 5 different artwork ideas. And now I can change between my scenes by commenting out what I've got up here. I want scene 2, I comment out scene 1 and scene 3. If I want scene 1, I copy out scene 1 and scene 2. But that's not very convenient, sadly. Not very convenient at all. So maybe there's some way that I can control these scenes automatically, potentially with some kind of interactions, right? Wouldn't that be good? I think it would be good. So I'm going to make a couple of variables up here. I'm going to make us a variable called scene counter. Scene counter equals 1. So if scene counter is 1, then we draw scene 1. If it's 2, we draw scene 2, etc. So we can say if scene counter is 1, then draw scene 1. And this is great. We can actually just copy this same thing, because scene counter is not going to, well, we can make an else if scene counter is 2, draw scene 2, and then happily else, this one's easy, draw scene 3. So now our scene will be scene 1 all the time. But we can certainly change that. We could add a mouse clicked function. Function mouse clicked. Make some interaction here. So this is going to update scene counter. Scene counter plus plus. Scene counter equals scene counter plus 1. And then we might make sure that scene counter doesn't go above 3. If scene counter greater than 3, we set it to 1. Okay, here we go. Click. There's scene 2. Click. There's scene 3. Click. Oh, not doing anything. I want to print out my scene counter. Two, 3. Just keeps getting bigger. What's going on there? Oh, I misspelled it. Scene counter. Not scene counter, scene counter. There we go. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So a simple way of having 3 scenes. You might want to have some other ways of doing this. You could base this on time. You could have like multiple clicks that have to be counted in order to create the next scene. There's lots of different ways that you could express scene timiness in your code. But this simple one is good for, at least for sketching ideas and thinking about how things would work. Maybe it requires that you click in a certain area or click a certain number of things to move around before it moves into the next time. I think I quite like this one. I'm not sure what's happened here. They've gone out of phase, which is kind of exciting. Simple idea, but a kind of cool pattern. Anyway, so that's my 3-scene, 3-act play, 3-scene opera, 3-scene artwork. Folks, the week 10 lecture. Oh, someone didn't find it. Oh, bummer. I thought it was on stream. It's definitely going on YouTube and Team and Twitch, I think. Some people seem to not be able to find it. Well, if they can't find it, it'll be on Echo 360 later. Next week, we're back to Monday with a whole lecture about recent developments in art and interaction computing. So if you are a 6720 student, this is one not to miss. But if you are in any kind of 1720 student as well, it's also a great one to get some more inspiration and ideas for your major project, because this is the time when you need to be doing a lot of iteration and experimentation. Let's go back to my OBS screen. Folks, thank you so much for joining me today. If you were joining me online live, if you weren't joining me online live and you were watching on 360, thank you for you too. And if you're not watching it at all, I'm not talking to you. So hopefully people do watch it. Thanks for joining me today. I'll see you on Monday. See you, folks.